Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Danny Danae Show. I am Danielle Danae, aka Danny Danae, and I've got a lot to say. So let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about keys to great communication. Let's get right into it. So, I used to think great communication was, being able to speak fast, being articulate, and using big words, which, all are great things. Absolutely. But there's other factors that I've come to understand as I've gotten older, and I want to break them down for you guys. And some of these are self-explanatory. Some of the things a lot of people already know, but a lot of people don't. So I'm here to inform you guys. So yeah, one of my points is one good thing of having and being a great communicator, having great communication. Pardon me, is having a point and getting to it as quickly as possible. People are impatient, and it 10 times that now that we have, social media and, things are, people have the attention span of literally of children, you know, um, it's literally within a minute, and usually like 10 seconds or less, determine whether they're deter- people determine whether they're going to continue to listen to someone or if they're interested or not in seconds, let alone minutes. So, yeah, minutes, let alone seconds. But yeah, so you gotta know what you're talking about and get to whatever it is you're trying to portray as fast as possible. Long-windedness, whether you realize it or not, it shows to your audience, it shows a lack of discernment. You should be able to look at your audience and tell if they're interested in what you have to say or not. And, a lot of higher ups and people that run businesses really, they understand this, but it's not as important to them because, it's like they feel like, since they're at the top, whoever is under them has to listen to what they have to say, right? So who cares if you like it or not? But it's really an important skill to have, if you want people long term. Obviously, people are working under you, they're gonna give a little leniency, but re- people want to like who they're working for and want to, and want who they're working for to value, their work, their say, their time as much as they do yours. So you definitely have to have that discernment. If you notice people are checking out, you need to shift the way your speaking points in some way, some shape or form. Because yeah, like I said, long-windedness, pardon me, shows a lack of discernment and also shows a lack of focus. It's like, well, if you're just rambling on sentence after sentence, word after word, and not getting to a specific point, it's like, well, what are we doing here? It causes a lot of confusion. It makes people question your authority, whether you know it or not. The ones that have authority, like, every to the everyday people who are communicating and to certain people who never get to their points, it just causes people to create distance. It's like, what are we doing? So yeah, you gotta have discernment, you gotta be focused. So yeah, having a point and getting to it is very important. And I can't give you a time frame, a specific time frame and when that is, when you should hit your point during a conversation or a speech. But I know that, within 5 minutes or so, people tend to check out. I know I do. I know when people are talking to me, it's really only 1 minute. But if I like you, I've heard you speak before, I'll give you about five. But in that first minute, it's very important to grab people's attention. So yeah, have the point and get to it. Second point, though, if you have to be a little long-winded, like I said, sometimes, that's okay when it comes to, you have to give a speech at an important dinner, or you're having a group meeting, a very important conversation of some sort. Sometimes you do have to be a little long-winded, because there's a lot of topics to cover. Um, but if you are in an instance where you have to be long-winded, you definitely have to catch or grab your audience's attention with whatever it is you're about to say in leading up to your point. Um, I don't know what that could be. That could be a lot of things. That could be, you telling a relatable story, saying something a little far-fetched, but, also interesting enough to keep them, intrigued, keep them guessing. Um, yeah. So when you tell an interesting story, it's something you can. If you tell when you tell an interesting story or a story that a lot of people can relate to, it pulls on heartstrings. It makes people relate to you. Like I said, it makes people more drawn to you because they feel like you're one of them, even if you're not. People's feelings draw people in all the time. So that's something you should definitely pay attention to when you're doing a long-winded, when you're going longer than normal on a speech, or communicating in any way. Yeah, so tell a story that's interesting, tell a story that's relatable, um, and yeah, use similes, use metaphors. People love those. um, Definitely, especially women. Yeah, when you um, make throw in similes and metaphors, it also draws people in, and it also stems curiosity, especially when it's an unfamiliar simile or metaphor. It's like, huh, okay, and well, that was weird, but I want him to explain this for me, so that definitely keeps people, you know intrigued and interested in what you have to say. And then once you get to your point, once you land your plane, you gotta land it smoothly, very, very smoothly. Um, use words like "thank you" for land it smoothly and nicely, and like nicely. Say words like "thank you," and I appreciate you listening to me. Like those are very important words for someone to hear, especially if they're taking their time out of their day. If it was an inconvenience in any way or sorts, those are great words to end with, and sometimes to start with too. But especially end with. So yeah, make people feel good about you listening to them. So they'll be encouraged to do that more often in the future, and feel good about if they did listen to you thoroughly through the time through your whole speech. They feel good about doing so. You know, Gratitude is always great. So yeah, that's another point. And then something else I would also say: listen to understand before listening to respond. So many people do this too often. They think they're hearing somebody, but they're not really hearing them. They're just um keep their eye out for trigger words, which I like to call them, stuff that they can say to get riled up to form a response, an emotional response. And no, great communication involves great listening skills. When you truly listen to somebody and what they have to say, it gives you a blueprint on what you're about to speak on. It makes it seem it makes people want to listen to you more when you know what it is you're talking about, what the premise of the conversation is. When people don't read a room, I've been in so many spaces where people just jump in, speak, and just say things that are on the tip of their tongue. And when you just do that, it just throws off the whole energy of the room. You get less respected, and it's unattractive. It's unattractive to say the least. And if so, people just sat back and listen and really listen, not just heard a person speak, but really listen, and then just listen for those words I mentioned, those specific trigger words, or specific words in order to that you feel like needs a instant response. No, just sit back and listen to somebody speak. Don't be so quick to interrupt. It shows self-control when you do so also, which is a very important character to have when communicating, because a lack of self-control causes you to say crazy things all the time. We see that all the time in these media spaces. We see that in our own families. So when we take our emotions out of it and really calm ourselves. And even if someone says some outlandish things that we think are so crazy, we gotta calm down a little bit. Now, there are instances where somebody could say something crazy about your character, and sometimes you gotta butt in right when they say that. Some things you can't let slide, but you that's also another way you got to have that type of discernment to decide whether that is or what that is in that moment. I can't tell you that for you, or maybe I could, but that'd be another show. I can't say what that is, but um yeah, when even in those instances you can't be too riled up, because you're if you're debating with somebody, and the person you're debating with notices that you're all riled up, they're going to use that against you. If they're smart, they're going to use it against you in the worst way possible, which is, them having that composure, them letting you finish, and looking like the victim in all this, even though they were probably the ones that initially attacked you. So yeah, be mindful about butting in to conversations. Make sure you hear the person out, and make sure other people hear you out. This is all a vice versa type of thing. Yeah, you just gotta read a room. Got to be patient. You got to. Um, there was one time, it was so funny. I don't know how old I was, but I was young. I think I was maybe in middle school. And I remember I had gotten to a verbal disagreement with another student, and the teacher wrote us up, me and this other student, and we sat in the principal's office. And I remember she was telling her side of the story. The principal had her tell her side of the story and me, right? So she went first, and I remember just sitting there the whole time, just hearing her say she was lying on me. I remember that. I remember thinking like, I can't believe this girl is saying this, pardon me, about me. But I remember sitting through the whole time being quiet. I didn't interrupt her. I didn't say that's not true. I didn't show any, I didn't throw anything. I didn't do anything crazy with my body language. I didn't make any faces. I just let her finish. And I remember as soon as she was done, the principal was like, Danielle, I really appreciate you sitting and listening, and not interjecting, and you being, as cute about it, cute about the situation as I was. And at the time, I didn't really, appreciate it, because I was like, I just, and I don't know what it was about that moment, because kid Danielle normally would have been out of shape of what she said and tried to interject. But I don't know, it was just something about that day. I don't know, that had me, have more self-control in the situation. But yeah, it's a memorable one. I don't remember much about my childhood, but I remember that day, because I didn't, I've never heard someone say they appreciated me doing that. I was, like I said, I was a kid that always went off the rims. I was always emotional about everything. So, and when I kind of wasn't, or was cool about something, there was no appreciation for that. So yeah, it it's attractive. People, really want to hear what you have to say when don't thrust it upon another person, when you're not rah-rahing in their face and quiet. People are more intrigued to hear what you want to say, because it's like you're hiding something that they're trying to find. So keep that in mind. Whenever you're speaking to someone, be a little mysterious. People love mystery, right? But don't be so mysterious that you say nothing. Right? But be just enough so that, people are very curious on what you're going to say in the moment, or going to say next, right? Um so yeah, remain calm, remain unbothered, remain emotional throughout the whole time you're communicating to whoever it is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a roommate, teammate, sister or brother. You have to control how you react, because you never know how your reactions could affect someone too. You have to be mindful of that, yeah, and you gotta also understand that, you might be wrong. You might be wrong, and whatever you're communicating about, If it's something that you feel like someone did wrong, or you felt like, I don't know, you weren't heard in a situation, sometimes, you misunderstood a situation, or maybe you did understand it right, but two things can be true at once. The person you're speaking with understood it from a kind of different perspective. So you have to watch your tone, because not everything is can seem intentional, as intentional disrespect or neglect. Some people just, everybody's raised different, everybody experiences things differently, and they might have seen something differently than you did. So you always got to keep that in mind. Um, but always, when I say, be a little more stoic in your emotions in the conversation, just there's a time and place to be empathetic. There's a time and place to be empathetic, and there's a time and place to be, to show you are a human, because we're all human. And like I said, people want to be able to relate to you, and anybody can relate to being human, going through human emotions and human experiences in general. But there's a time and place, guys. And again, you have to have that discernment to know when that time and place is. Um, but for the most part, just having a heart to heart or maybe not heart to heart, maybe just having a simple conversation with a coworker, having a conversation with a friend or a colleague, um, maybe not a close friend. You have to pretty much remain stoic and get to your point, like I said earlier, and just come to understanding. And if you don't agree to disagree, sometimes that's what you got to do. Sometimes some people are committed to misunderstanding you, no matter how good of a communicator you are. I realized that so much being here. I'm like, oh, I would try to prove my point so hard and hard again. And you maybe use different words to try to get somebody to understand. But when somebody is committed to misunderstanding you, there's no lengths you can go to get somebody to understand, because, like I said, they've made that choice and there's no changing it. So you also have that discernment to know when that is. Life is interesting, man. There's a lot of life lessons, and it's tough, to kind of maneuver, especially if you weren't taught these things at a young age, which I surely wasn't. I'm figuring it out as I go, but you start to pick up on these things really quickly once you get into it and are persistent and have a bunch of relationships, like you do. So yeah. Yeah, it's all about discernment, guys. You got to figure it out, but you will. You will, as long as you're persistent and and learning and still interested in experiencing new relationships, new ways of communicating. You're going to succeed. You're going to succeed no matter what. Okay. Last point. Use hand gestures and use your voice. People seem to be more responsive when, and the greatest speakers ever use their hands when they're speaking. And I have to get better at this, because I do not like moving my hands around, especially when my nails aren't done. But I'm on this journey of going natural. But yeah, it creates a more emphasis, a stronger emphasis on words you say. Like, if you say, for example, right now with your hands and with your face, with your eyes lighting up, it gets people like, oh my gosh, okay, she's talking about something right now. It's like, oh, what is she talking about? It just gets people more riled up, so to say, for what you're saying. Or if you say right now too, or if you do that right now, it's like, um yeah, I don't know how it works. I think it's more of a psychological thing. But since people are very visual as well, um people are attracted to movement, and when you're moving when you're doing the proper movements, with words, with your face together, it's like magic when communicating in any aspect. So yeah, use your hands as much as possible. And when I say use your voice, I mean, find your niche. Find your niche. Like I said, I thought I had to To be a great communicator, I thought, I had to speak fast and be super articulate like Miss Candace Owens. I'm a big fan of hers, and I watched her show, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta learn how to speak fast like her and be more articulate." And it's just like, well, I could work on being more articulate, but fast talking might not be my thing, and it might not be your thing, and that's okay. You gotta find what works for you and just stick to it, and that could be a fast talker, that could not be. That could be someone who interjects jokes in what they're saying. It might work sometimes, and if it doesn't, you got to find something else. But yeah, if you tell them little jokes works, you get the responses you want, get the results you want, and that's your niche. Um, Someone who takes necessary pauses. I've mentioned this before. Like, I wish I could copy it, and I wish I could have played a video for you guys of former President Barack Obama speaking, but he was a great speaker because he knew when to take pauses in his speech. Like, he paused just before he would pause in places that people wouldn't normally pause, which drew more people in to what he was about to say. He had that level of curiosity. He drew up that level of curiosity I was speaking about earlier with those pauses. So that might be your thing, and it's a great thing if that's your skill. Now, if it's not, it's gonna look weird. If you're taking pauses in unnecessary places and you're taking extra long pauses when you're speaking, people are gonna be like, "Oh, what's wrong with him or her?" But if you figure it out, if you find out, how to do it correctly, that could very well be your niche and work out for you in the best way possible. Yeah, own it, whatever it is. If you're a jokester, make it work for you. Make it work for you because it can. Either you have the the history or personality of it working. If you're naturally funny in person and you're trying to figure out how to make it, work in the way you communicate in everyday life, you can make it work. You just got to put in the effort, and you know, and it'll happen for you. And like I said, if you're not funny in everyday life and you're just trying to do it because you saw somebody else do it, you can't do that. People also, um they sense people who are not authentic, or are trying to be something they're not. Just like they can spot people who are really who they are who they really are and are truly authentic. So find that authentic piece of yourself and work it. Work it with these skills, and I promise you, you will be on the road to being a great communicator. All right, guys. But of all things, last thing I'm going to say is you got to be confident. You got to be confident in anything you do, but especially when you're speaking to people. And I know it can be scary. Trust me. I was horrible at speaking. I was about to say sucked, but I want to say wasn't the greatest communicator. I stuttered. I slurred my words together. I still stutter today, but I've gotten so much better and then it was before I was terrible. So yeah, you gotta give yourself grace, and you gotta give yourself a pat on the back when you made progress. And for me to make progress, I put myself in quote unquote uncomfortable situations in order to be more comfortable doing this, like speaking in rooms on audio apps like Clubhouse and now Chatter and now on YouTube. So yeah, it comes naturally to some people, but some other people have to work at it. And if you're one of those people that got to work at it, cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It may take you a little longer, but you're gonna get there, just because you put the effort in. So, yeah, and be confident. And just because you have the confidence to do so, the courage to do so. So, always be confident in yourself, even if you slip up. Own it. Own it. Like I said, people are human. So they make their own mistakes too. They're not looking for perfection. And somebody may think you're perfection, even if people think perfection is in imperfection so many times. So yeah, don't hound yourself too hard for it. Okay. You live and you learn if you do bad. And, but also sometimes you don't do as bad as you think. So have grace, have the confidence, and kill it. Kill it with these things, guys. All right. That's all I have to say about that today. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like this video if you liked this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Comment always, and I will see you guys on tomorrow's video. All right. Bye. Bye.